738, Big 550 KTRS. Each week we check in with Kathy Helbig of the Kathy Helbig Group, gives us a couple of real estate tips. You see her on KSDK Channel 5. She's their real estate guru. We liked her so much we stole her, and we let her play here on KTRS as well. Good morning, Kathy Helbig from the Kathy Helbig Group.
Good morning. How are you?
You are joining us via Skype, and let's talk about something that is really interesting, and that is contingencies on sale contracts. Explain what's going on there.
Yes. So there's basically two types of home sale contingent contracts. One is contingent on the sale and closing of the property, and one is contingent on the successful closing of the property. But in either case, both of those, the buyer is asking the seller pretty much to assume their risk. So typically when you are a contingent offer, you need to make it really attractive. The seller tends to shy away from it. And the big thing about that is the contingency never ends until the closing date. So you're assuming that risk all the way till you're sitting at the closing table.
I have been in a situation where I've put a contingency in there for the one and simple reason for me to get out of a contract whenever I want.
Yeah, that's a different type of contingency. You can write in any type of contingency you want, but a home sale contingency is saying, I'm going to make an offer on your house, contingent upon me. Typically, you're looking at about a 45-day to a 60-day contingency period. And what people don't understand about contingent contracts, sellers oftentimes aren't knowledgeable about them, so they tend to shy away. A contingent contract sometimes can be a good idea if you do your homework. So you need to know, what is it contingent on? What is that buyer or the buyer of your house going to price their home at? The home sale contingent blindly, because you're sitting and waiting for that buyer to be able to perform. However, what sellers don't understand is they are not locked in for very long. There's a home sale contingent kickout, and what that means is it's typically 24 to 48 hours that at any time, for any reason, it does not even have to be another contract, a seller can change his mind and just call the contract and say, remove contingency. So you really can take a risk for maybe a week, couple weeks to see if that buyer's property goes under contract quickly, if it's in an area that sells quick and it's priced aggressively. Now, the buyer, on the other hand, is locked in for that whole 45 to 60 days. So you're expected to have your house on the market and be doing all the things possible to get that home sold during that time frame. If it goes under contract, then your contract moves forward with the buyer. With the seller.
It sounds pretty confusing, which is why I need somebody like Kathy Helbig to figure it all out for me.
At least it sounds like the seller can really pretty much get out of it whenever, right, Kathy?
Right, and that's what people don't understand. So immediately they go, I'm not going to take a contingency. And we've done some before where strategically it's worked out, because as a buyer, you better come in with your best offer if you're asking the seller to assume your risk.
Yeah.
So don't lowball the house and put a contingent offer on it. You're just not going to get anywhere.
Interesting. Have you ever been in a situation where you had a contingency chain where you had like 6 houses all waiting to close, but you had to sell one first in the chain?
Yes, and unfortunately, the guy at the end of the line's taking all the risk.
Right.
So if anybody doesn't go through, that's a successful closing. And that means if you're sitting there and the buyer's buyer gets in a car wreck on the way to the closing and can't close, that the buyer's protected, but the seller lost his contract, and there's no restitution. It was contingent all the way till closing.
Interesting. All right, Kathy Helbig, all of that and more when you call Kathy Helbig Group, KathyHelbigGroup.com. Download the app. It's a great app. If you want to kick the tires or you're a serious buyer, that app is great. KathyHelbigGroup.com. Search the iPhone store or the Android store and download it today. Kathy, be safe, and hopefully we'll talk to you next week in studio.
I'll be there. Thanks.
You got it. KathyHelbigGroup.com, 314-276-SOLD, or Kathy